students have become, I would say, a bit more picky. They don't just want to have anything. They want properties that are modern, in good locations, properties that are well looked after.
Now I think people know they're coming out with 50 grand's worth of debt. So if you're going to come out with 50 grand's worth of debt, you might as well spend an extra couple £100 a month on rent and live somewhere vaguely hospitable.
He's just sick and tired of speaking to tenants left, right and centre. He's sick and tired of having to do the viewings by himself. It's taking hours and hours and hours of his daily life. Now he is considering using an agent. Ladies and gents, we are back for another episode of the Investors Corner, and this week me and Mike are joined by Sherko, new Avocado partner that operates in the Oxford area. So we're going to grill you a bit, Sherko, on the current market in Oxford and see how much you really do know.
Yes.
So, which you don't know, I'm putting you on the spot here. But first, before we get into stats, because we love a good stat on the Investors Corner, tell me about the Oxford area, because obviously you've grown up around there.
Yeah, so it's lucrative for investors. I really believe it still is. I think it's one of the strongest cities in terms of when COVID hit. It kept going. It didn't stop. It didn't stall. The market kept moving, especially lettings. You've got 3 major hospitals in that area. You've got Oxford University, you've got Oxford Brookes. It's all there. So it's very student populated, but also it's very good in the professional family market as well. And you've got the Mini plant as well, so the home of BMW Mini.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of workers there that need places to stay. So on a rental perspective and side of things, I think still one of the strongest places to be a landlord.
Yeah,
I really do.
I mean, one of the things that we've seen in Oxford is obviously the majority of the lettings side is student lettings. And it's not something that we've really touched on a lot, student lettings. We've touched on the sort of normal buy-to-let and rent it out to professionals or families. But what's the difference with student housing compared to a normal buy-to-let? Obviously, with students, they're not employed, so how does it all work with them being referenced and all of that?
In regards to the rental figures, it's a lot more, sometimes triple what a professional would pay. Because, for example, a typical 6-bed house in Cowley, which is one of the prime locations students want to be in, you'll be looking like nearly 3,900 per calendar month. So it's lucrative. But again, because the students don't work, we only reference them on just a credit check. But they will need guarantors to pay. Obviously, if they can't pay the rent, we would chase up a guarantor, etc. Or with the international students, they pay up front. So they pay 6 months up front rent, and then the next 6 months when it's time to do that. But it's lucrative, but you've got to put money into it as well. As a landlord, you do. Especially the way Oxford Brookes and University are building accommodation, students have become, I would say, a bit more picky. They don't just want to have anything. They want properties that are modern, in good locations, properties that are well looked after for them to live in. End of the day, students aren't animals. They want to live somewhere nice as well. So with the way Oxford Brookes and University are building their accommodation to such a high standard, once they move into a house with their friends, their standards have gone up compared to what it was 5 to 10 years ago. They want better. So it's what we're saying to our landlords we work with: put money into it, because genuinely you'll get it back in the long term.
So what sort of standards are we looking at then? Because obviously when we mention HMOs, and we've mentioned it in previous podcasts as well, you just have that sort of feeling in your head that HMOs are dirty, cramped and all of that sort of stuff. So we talk, the houses in Oxford done to a high standard. Have they got, a large living room area? Is it all modern condition throughout? Big kitchen, diner areas, big gardens for them to enjoy? Because the reason why I say that is because we obviously had previous podcasts with Peter Licorinos, who deals with sort of luxury HMOs, and he's getting £1,000 per room per month in rent. So I had a look at the average room rates for Oxford earlier, and for a double ensuite bedroom, you're looking at about £940 a month. You know, paying those type of prices, you would expect that the standard is high, but is that always the case?
Well, you'd expect it to be, but it's not. A majority, a handful of the HMOs are just absolutely shocking. I wouldn't let a dog live there, let alone students or professionals, But then it's important, we've also walked away from business from bad landlords, because it's just not worth our time.
Yeah.
My time, it also looks bad on us as agents, because a lot of the HMOs, the landlords will manage the properties themselves, unless they're international. So we work with some landlords that don't live in the UK, but invest a lot in the UK, especially Oxford, and we help them do either full management or rent collection, but a majority are let only. And typically what I've noticed with those sort of landlords is all they want you to do is just do the viewings, get the contracts and references sorted, and you're out, they're out. They'll manage it. But especially last year, we met with a landlord actually. They've got a mass number of properties, but I just didn't feel they were good enough for us to advertise or even bring people to do viewings. So, and that was, a lot of people say to me, still to this day, you're crazy, you lost so much money. But is money everything? No. Because for us, we rather work with landlords long term that are willing to listen to our advice and make properties, better condition, people to enjoy. So a lot of them aren't in great shape, but the landlords are now that I think they're noticing, actually we need to pump a bit of money into it because it's going to help us long term. And also there is so much competition out there. Students can view so many properties now when they're launched onto the student market, and the competition is endless. It wasn't like, again, 10, 15 years ago, there weren't that many about. So now the competition's out there, everyone's got up their game.
Yeah. I think everyone's standards have increased, haven't they? Just not across property, across all aspects of life, that your standards have gone up here, so now that needs to be reflected in other areas and living situations. If you're living in a property, you want a good standard of property. So yeah, like you said, I think a lot of landlords that are in the HMO business have taken note of that and seen what other HMO investors are doing as well, like Peter Likarinos with his sort of luxury rooms and keeping tenants on there for a longer period of time rather than them leaving after 6 to 12 months or
well, it's funny you say that actually, because most of our managed properties, so the students will be going to their second year, they actually stay with us on average 2 years. So because they're just so happy with everything, they're like, you know what, the property's in good condition. You look after us as an agency. The landlord has never caused any issues for us. We pay our rent on time. We look after it. Our inspections reflect that as well, that every 6 months we go and have a look around, make sure everything's okay. But when jobs you're doing, they just get done. End of the day, I think people forget, especially landlords, that ultimately it's a business, yes, but we are providing a service. So the tenants are the customer. So we need to ensure everything's done to the highest standard. If someone's got no hot water, I've heard sometimes it takes some agents a week to get someone out. Why? But you're paying crazy rent. 24 hours, that should be resolved. 48 hours maximum, really.
Yeah.
So it's most of our managed students actually tend to stay on for 2 years, which is not really typically the case. And it shouldn't really happen. They usually move on. But they're like, actually, the standard of your properties are so good, we can't find nothing else that matches it.
Yeah.
So it's,
that's ideally what you want. The longer the better, right? You don't want to keep having to switch tenants left, right and centre. So, if you have your standards like that and you manage it correctly, then tenants are always going to stay on this. It's like when a tenancy comes up for renewal and the market's moved on slightly. The majority of people that we speak to are happy to pay the inflation rate increase on their property because they've been well looked after. So they've got no dramas about it. It's you get looked after, then you're going to return the favour, aren't you? So makes sense. So tell me about property in Oxford then. So I'm an investor. I'm coming to you, Sherko, saying, Sherko, I've got some money stashed away. I want your guidance on things. What would be your top investment to make in Oxford? What's going to make me money and for a long-term goal?
I still think the HMO market, I genuinely do. Or if you've, developing something into a block of flats, 1-2 beds are still very lucrative, I think, because, you've got a lot of professionals. As I said, with the 3 major hospitals, the mini plant in Oxford as well, you got a lot of couples or just single people that work, need somewhere to stay, basically. So 1-2 beds do really well on a rental market. But I still genuinely believe the HMO market is still one of the strongest there. And, if you've got, especially if you're a cash buyer, there's a lot of, at the moment, landlords that have got HMOs are selling them up because I think they've realised they've got away with it for so long that now the standards need to be raised. They're like, actually, it doesn't make sense for them financially anymore. But this is when new investors are coming through and snapping properties up because, people say, but people don't invest in the UK no more. I still think they do. I truly believe the UK is still one of the best countries to invest in. The yields are great. It's especially if you're a cash buyer. But even if you're a first-time landlord, what I would recommend is a 1 or 2 bed flat first.
Yeah.
Another year or 2, pull money out into the HMO game, 100%.
What kind of restrictions have you got on HMOs and planning in Oxford?
So Oxford at the moment, it's got one of the highest percentage of planning applications go through around where it is. I think it's like 80% at the moment. It's so active. It's just crazy.
They've obviously got people at the council.
It helps.
Rather than the majority.
Like, it is crazy. It is. The only thing I think the council don't help, it's especially with now any rental property, non-HMO, you need a selective licensing. And I think that has turned people off.
Mm-hmm. And that's for any
rental
property.
Yeah. 1 bed, 2 bed, 3 bed, 4, yeah.
Right.
Non-HMO. And it's frustrating for me because all the council require for that licence is you to send a gas safety certificate, an EICR, things like that we do as agents. For a property to go on the market, we require these documents before someone moves in. So it's like a landlord's just got to send these off. They have a look. They don't even go out to these properties, by the way, which they say they do. They don't. They never visit them to see what condition they're in. So I think it's just a money-making scheme.
Yeah.
Which does put landlords off because, I think it's like £500 for 5 years, but it's still £500 less or £500 more for a landlord to pay out.
Yeah.
So that's come into force, which I think has impacted, some people think, oh, shall I sell up because I don't want to hassle anymore. It's just too much. They feel, they're trapped. Like they can't, it's all about tenants. But then with the HMO, so again, they're restricting it because I work with some landlords that used to get 5-year licenses. That's hardly happening. You're lucky to get a 2-year at the moment. So
what, on a HMO?
Yeah.
license?
So yeah, which is really frustrating. So like some landlords I know, they used to get like a 5-year license.
Yeah.
Happy days because it just worked really well. But those 5 years have turned into 2 years. So we've had some cases every year they need to be renewed.
Yeah, I mean that's just ridiculous because for me it was always if you need a HMO license, it was valid for 5 years or up until the point of when that HMO is next HMO license scheme is next up for review, and it would go to that date. I've never HMO licenses for a year. It's what's the point? Because then I've got to renew it and I've got to pay another fee. Like you said, to me it sounds like a money-making scheme because selective licensing used to be dedicated to specific roads that were in poor condition being rented out. It was never a let's roll this out across the whole city or town. But all councils are different, I suppose. Yeah. Some councils do it, some councils don't.
I get why they do it in Oxford though, because it is a unique town. Yeah. There's no town, I guess, apart from Cambridge, like it. Where it's so dominated by a hospital and a university. It's just like the population is dominated by those two factors, and obviously a lot of hospital staff will live in shared accommodation. The nursing staff, cleaning staff, admin sort of staff, and obviously all students will tend to live in shared accommodation as well once they're out of halls. So I get why they're doing it. As with anything else, though, it's imperfect, isn't it? Like,
yeah, I mean,
the scheme would have been invented with an ending goal to flush out those rubbish landlords, like you say. And it's 20 years since my friends were at uni, and I remember seeing some things and some stuff. There's a good film quote there, which you just can't believe. And I think the mentality of tenants has changed. That it costs a lot of money to go to university now. It didn't when I was a kid. So if it didn't cost a lot of money to go, you would keep it cheap and try and get out with no debt or as little debt as possible, work some Saturdays, blah, blah, blah. Now I think people know they're coming out with 50 grand's worth of debt. So if you're going to come out with 50 grand's worth of debt, you might as well spend an extra couple £100 a month on rent and live somewhere vaguely hospitable, rather than the places with the damp patches in the ceilings and the tiles falling off and the windows being repaired with gaffer tape. I've seen it all.
There are some horror stories.
So I think that's why that market has improved itself. I still think there's a long way to go, which is why the councils feel the need to step in and try to regulate by, as you say, offering the bare minimum of, right, we need to see your compliance. I wonder if that creates a black market, though, where landlords are just letting privately and just circumnavigating that scheme. I don't know.
Well, this is why I personally hate open rent. I do.
We've got a podcast on that, Sherko. Good link. Well done.
Sorry.
The link will go in the notes. Don't worry about that.
But unless there is more and more landlords just go do it privately now. Because they don't, like, genuinely, I've even had landlords say to me, thank you for your help, I don't need that anymore because I'm not doing a selective licensing. I'm just going to rent out privately myself. But it's such a danger to go down that route. And they just think the problem is they could just whack it on open rent or, all these sites like Airbnb, and that's it. They could get away with it. But if something happens to that property while the tenants live there, it's going to be such a backlash. They don't realise that. It just takes that one incident or, fault in the electrics or something like that.
We've done previous podcast episodes on, landlords managing a property themselves compared to what an agent does. And I think more and more landlords are starting to use open rent because they're trying to save some money further on down the line, because they've either had to remortgage recently where their costs have increased quite significantly and they need to cut costs back. But I saw a client last week that said to me that he's got a friend that deals with HMOs. He's managing the properties by himself. And the conversation that they had the other day was that he's just sick and tired of speaking to tenants left, right and centre. He's sick and tired of having to do the viewings by himself. It's taking hours and hours and hours of his daily life away from the things that he wants to do. And now he is considering using an agent. So I think you try it, at some point everything will catch up with you, and you won't want to manage your properties for any longer, especially when there's new regulations coming in and you've got to try and keep on top of all of that. We've seen articles coming through recently, landlords fined £15,000, £80,000, over £100,000, landlords going to prison because they haven't done something that they needed to do for compliance. So look, it's if you can do it, you can do it. If you're unsure about doing it, don't risk it by doing it. And then just seek that professional help. But you will get landlords that want to do it themselves, but all they need to do is look at these horror stories that come through, and is it worth being risked? Is it worth being fined £30,000 if you haven't got a compliance document? To me, no. But like I said, if you've done it for years and years and years, then fine, that's your choice. But you just need to think about it.
But I think it's the older generation that don't want to change. Because when I speak to landlords that have been, say, landlords for like 40 plus years, they're the ones that want to keep going and keep managing themselves because they think their way's the right way. And it's like it's that fear of change, isn't it? It's, I know I'm right, legislation doesn't mean nothing. Legislation hasn't changed, but it has in the last 40 years. It changes every day, but I think they're scared to admit they need help. Because even my dad, right, if he's doing something in the garden, I'll tell him, Dad, there's a quicker way to do it. He's like, no, my way's better, because he thinks he knows best. But there are more quicker ways to do things. And I think it's educating landlords and educating people.
Exactly right. Yeah, there's a piece where the agents are at fault because we don't show everything that we do.
Yeah.
So the impression that the general landlord gets is, right, you whack it on Rightmove, you get a tenant and you move them in. And it's as easy as that. And because Open Rent obviously give you access to Rightmove, well, that's my problem solved.
Yeah.
Like, it's the agents in general are gatekeepers to Rightmove, but lettings has been opened up by giving access through that way. And I think agents are at fault in some ways for either not showing their value well enough or not providing enough value. On the flip side of it, like you said, here's where I'm providing value. I'm providing value by giving you advice. I'm providing value by telling you where to spend your money, by bringing the right tenants, by inspecting the property, by renewing those tenants, so we're getting an average of 2 years, not a 1 year tenant, and then you having to go again to re-advertise it. These are all my values. That's not value you can get by doing a for let by landlord advert. And where, yes, you'll be spending some money with me, but hey, that's a tax deductible expense where you're going to see more value come from it. And that's where, as agents, I think we need to be better in showing what we do. And as an agents, we need to be better in giving more value to people as an asset manager, not just an agent to find tenant.
And that's what last year, what I did was we had a clinic. So all our landlords that work with us throughout the summer, we would have literally a couple of hours with them to go through their portfolio, where it was at, what each property is gaining in rent, how can we improve the property to get better rental figures for the next academic year, how can we even improve the property for the tenants. So we do work really closely with landlords, especially our ones, because it's important, that we're on the same page. Because if they think their property could achieve, for example, £4,000 per month, but I'm like, that's not reality. The condition it's in right now is 3,500. But what is the point of saying that? What's the value in that? It's how can we maximise what we've got with their budget to do the works to make sure we get that rent. But also it's important to find the right tenants. It really is, because like a lot of our 1 and 2 beds, when a landlord says to me, Sherko, I want to increase the rent, I'm like, hold off 1 second. How many problems have we had this year? Zilch. Have they ever missed payment? No. Do they look after it when we go visit the property? Yes, they're clean. They're looking after it. It's well kept. So for the sake of £50 more a month, which you might put them in a hard position, is it worth it? So it's also talking to the landlords from a tenant's perspective as well. But I've been a tenant, so I know what it feels like, in that side of things. So I have a bit more of an understanding when I talk to tenants.
Yeah.
But it's also, again, it comes down to educating landlords. It is spending time with them, looking at the assets. How can we maximise? But also, how can we help you buy more? Let's get your business up. Let's just get you making more money. How can we help you maximise that? Where can we put money out? Where can we pull money out of to get you the next best investment? I do a lot of off-market HMOs for our clients abroad. Literally, they don't even need to call me or anything. I just know if I find a right deal, I know exactly who I'm going to send that to. And they'll either say, love it, I'm going to snap it up, or not for me at this time. But it's knowing your landlords. But it's also knowing your tenants. I think that's important as well. You've got to have good communication with your tenants.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said there, Sherko. You've got to look after both parties and know your client, and that's how you build up the relationship, and that's how you keep the relationship going. And that's what you've got to do now with all of the competition out there, and everyone selling their service that it's the best service in town, when really it's not. You've just got to separate yourself and know your clients and look after them. So with HMO property then, so how much is a good HMO property going to cost me then?
So it depends, because you could buy one with HMO licence already. So for example, we just actually sold one, a 4-bed in Cowley, St Mary's Road, one of the most lucrative roads, because everyone wants to be there. Not just students or professional by families. It's just one of those streets that it's got a mixture of everyone. A 4-bed HMO could have the potential to become a 6-bed, 650. 650,000, and that was a cash buyer. So insane off market, because the client said to me, "Can you put it on the market?" I advised a slightly different price, but they really wanted to try at 650. That was the price they really wanted to go for, and then they changed their mind. Actually, funny enough, they were like, "I should take it off the market." They got a bit scared, I think, of the idea of letting it go, but then I knew a client was looking for a while, and I just said, look, it's off the market at the moment. It's been off for about a month, but if you were to, because I know you're in the market looking for something, it's a bit out of your price range, but look at what potentially it could become. A 6-bed HMO. It's a 4-bed right now. It's licensed for 4 beds, but with the right planning, it could become a 6-bed because it's got a basement and loft. You could do a loft conversion and make the living room another bedroom, etc. So either potentially a 7-bed, and he was like, saw what the vision was. I was like, I'll pay the top price. So we've done it. Yeah, 650.
650.
Yeah.
So how much money are you going to have to spend on that though to convert it?
So to be fair, it's in good condition.
Yeah.
So he'll be looking at about 15 to 20k.
Okay.
Yeah, but then a 6-bed in that area, we're renting them at the moment out at £4,000.
Okay, so pretty good returns then.
Yeah, but that's that like specific road. I'm not saying not every road's like that. Like for example, I've sold HMOs say without the license, but they could potentially become an HMO, 400,000.
Okay.
So it's also knowing, you've got to know your data and your stats in terms of the streets, because with the HMO licensing, it will on the council website it will tell you how much in the area is HMO'd. So what percentage, and a council play on that. So for example, if you're in an area and it's 20% of that area is HMO, you're less than likely to get a license. So it's also knowing the stats of that road and the area to help your investors, because if you're in an area that's hardly any HMOs, you're more than likely to get a license. So it's just knowing your facts and figures. But it's all on there. It's all on the council website anyway. So
yeah, so you know straight away. Nice. What do you think of HMO investing, Mike? Because I know we've obviously discussed it before and got reservations about HMOs, and you've got positives, negatives.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more difficult than it is buying a 2-bedroom flat, like you said. If you're a first-time investor, buying a single family use property is easier. But there's ways and means of just, I guess, mitigating the difficulties of, if you're in a student town, well, you're renting the house to a group rather than 6 individuals. Because if you've got 6 individuals, got 6 tenancies, which are all changing at different times, and you're constantly on top of that property. If you're doing it students, well, one group moves in like end of August, start of September. They move out at the end of July. It gives you 4 weeks turnover to make sure the house is shipshape for the next set. And I think there's just bulletproof golden rules with student housing. Sherko obviously does Oxford. I used to work around Egham, which again is a weird town where the university is bigger than the actual town, for Royal Holloway. And you could see the older landlords, and they were physically older as well as having held property for a long time, who just let the same tatty house year after year. And every year it would take a week longer to find a tenant, because the university were building more, because they could see to become a property developer as a university is very profitable, because they've got the land 9 times out of 10. But it's a simple rule of painting, high-speed internet, TVs, give the people what they want, because they will spend an extra £50 each per month, because that's a drop in the ocean compared to all the other fees and costs and charges that they're paying as international students. Or particularly, if you go into Oxford, 9 times out of 10 you come from a certain demographic, right? Demographic way above me. Where your parents will pay good money for you to live somewhere nice. Let's just leave that insinuation there. So why not chase that market? Like, don't fight against it. If someone's willing to pay £800 to £1,000 for a good room and you're renting them at £600 each, well, take a good look and figure out, okay, well, if I put a redeck in, what, a 42-inch screen costs like £200 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even high, but it really shows that you care as a landlord. And I'm just using that as an example. Like, there's other ways and means, but get Virgin broadband with a decent router. Get decent tellies in there.
Yeah.
Get decent furniture in there. That wasn't like off a skip 25 years ago. And mattresses that are collapsed and stained and stuff. Just have some. Put that pride in, and you'll see the income. I saw it in Egham. You can drop 25%, bang, overnight, and I'm sure it's the same in Oxford, if not more extreme, because the wealth is more with those students. Look, if my son's going to Oxford, I'll rent anywhere for him. To be honest, he won't.
Yeah.
But I'd be so proud that he got into Oxford.
Mate. Think positive.
Yeah. I'd be so proud that he went to Oxford that I'd spend the money.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of parents say. You know, all we want is our kids to live somewhere that's actually decent.
Yeah.
The cost isn't an issue. And when we look at the guarantors, what they're making, I'm like, wow. So money's not the object here.
Yeah.
I think the object is us as agents, we need to start being more honest with our landlords. Have those conversations that are uncomfortable, but actually long term you're helping them.
Beneficial, yeah.
Yeah. Like, you know, if you can't always say your house is brilliant. You know, because it's really funny when we do viewings for the students, right? The one thing we get over and over again, your pictures reflect the current house. And I've always said, what do you mean by that? That like with other agents, the pictures are like so old, so the house doesn't actually look like that anymore.
Yeah,
the house is worse. So just little things like that, and it's like, but even as an agent, you've got to take a pride in yourself in what you're letting out. So like, I know a lot of agents in the lettings industry, they don't do floor plans. They just take photos, just whack it on Rightmove. You know, I think that's like, why? Do a floor plan. You know, do some really nice photos. Make sure the property's like looking in its best condition, because not only are you gonna get better tenants, but also you're showing what sort of agents you are and an agency you are, and also showing your landlord that you care about how you're delivering their property across all platforms. And it's got to work together.
Yeah.
You can't just take photos on your phone and whack it on Rightmove. And I see it happen over and over and over and over again. The one thing we attracted so many landlords in the last 2 years to us was just because we had floor plans and better marketing than any other agency. And they said, you just stand out. You actually look like you care. So if I care, the landlord care, the tenant cares, we're all winning. Everybody's happy.
Well, everyone's pulling in the same direction.
Everybody's happy.
Yeah.
There's no magic recipe. It's really simple if you keep it simple.
Yeah, back to basics. Right, stock levels. I'm going to speak to you about stock levels.
The notepad's out.
Here. Notepad is out. So I've got stock, yields and rents. So stock-wise, so over 30% of stock on the rentals market are 3 beds. Is that what you sort of see? Predominantly more houses rather than apartments and all of that in Oxford?
Yeah, you do. Just because of the hospital rotations as well. So like February and August, you get a lot of doctors that move on and come in as well. And a lot of them have families. So you get a lot of, that does have a big impact.
Over 50% of listings are detached properties.
Yeah.
And over 70% of listings have an EPC rating of C.
Yes, things are improving.
So stock's okay.
So if you're an investor,
it's
you know, most of the properties out there are C rating and you know, detached 3 beds. That's sort of what you want as an investor.
It is, because you can again expand it, make it bigger if you wanted to. But it's but a lot of properties you can buy and just rent out straight away. You obviously do it up, paint it, etc.
Yeah.
But there's potential. For all the market. In Oxford, what's brilliant, you're not just like squeezed into one market.
Yeah.
You could play with whichever market you want.
Yeah. So it seems like there's good stock there. Yields. So this is where I want your input on it. Now, these are yields looking at normal buy-to-lets and HMOs. Yeah. Now, obviously, with HMOs, you expect higher yields. Yeah. So this is just taking into account both of them. So we're looking at 3, 4 and 5 beds 4.5% yield, which isn't the greatest if you're an investor, but I suppose what we need to look at is the capital appreciation side of things and extending and all of that on the property. So is that the sort of yields that you're seeing? Because obviously for investors, we've seen some properties recently where you're getting yields of 8%. It's a flat or whatever. It's but that's still 8%. Yeah. So if I was an investor, I'd be thinking, I can get 8%. What's my goal, long term, short term, etc., etc. 8% sort of entices me in. Yeah. 4.5%.
It's not as spicy, is it?
It's not as spicy.
No. But is that just statistics though? Because we all know what you can do with a statistic. You can bend it whichever way you like. Yeah. If you take the average price of an entire town, divide that by the average rent. Oxford's got some super high value areas.
Yeah. Well, average rents in Oxford are 1,800 a month.
So 1,800 is a lot.
1,800. And that's looking off data straight off property data.
Yeah.
So 1,800, and then if you look at from the beginning of the year to now, there's about 750 to 800 properties that have come on the market within those 7 months. So it's obviously big.
It is big numbers.
Big business out there. You get some good rents. Now, obviously, the 1,800 again, you'll have HMOs included in that, where it's a lot higher.
Yeah, I would say Oxford's the rental properties will be concentrated in certain types and certain areas, which just plays that statistic. So if you're an investor and you're only and you won't and you're looking for a buy to let, you'll get over 4.5. If you want it.
Yeah.
If you want a city centre, super brand new glass clad apartment building, you're going to pay through the nose to buy it.
Yeah.
Because land is very, very, very much at a premium in Oxford, so the purchase price is going to be super high. But I reckon there's if you drill down the locations around Oxford, and we all know Oxford's a town of maybe sort of 6 or 7 villages, effectively, you'll see some big changes as you go across those areas.
But it depends what like you said, your goal is. It depends what you want, because last year, so we sold a 2-bed house in Blackburn Leys, one of the biggest council estates in Oxford. Not the most desirable locations. But I come across 2 people, first time they're going to invest money in a property. They viewed it with me, and then they said, look, we've got some other viewings in more desirable locations. I said, that's fine. But I said, look, I'll tell you one thing, and I promise you now, if you buy this house, it's a 2-bed house, right, in Blackburn Leys, I will make sure you get the best rent. If you put effort in and you really put a bit of money into this property, I'll get you top rent for this 2-bed house. And they were a bit like, I'm in an hour and about the estate, but I said it's got potential. You could do side extensions. You can make it a 3-4 bed in 5-10 years' time, and you've got a bit of money. You've got to think about the long game. And they did actually buy it. They bought it for 315, 320, something like that. I can't really remember exact figures, but the rent we get in Blackbird Leys, a 2-bed house, £1,500.
That's beating you £1,500. Yeah.
People think I'm bonkers. people think, but so that 4.5 stat. It is. It depends what you're investing in. Exactly. People do think I'm bonkers. Blackburn Leys, great at least. But I'm a firm believer they're the best places to invest, because you buy cheap, but you run out for good value. But again, they listen to the advice. They listen to what needed doing, and they had some trust in me.
Yeah.
Because they could have bought a house that was a bit more, at the start.
Yeah.
And they may have got the same rent or a little bit more, but actually, long term, they're not going to add value.
And this is we talk about something almost every week in this podcast, is looking at where big central investment, whether it be regional government, whether it be private money, is going. And I don't know Blackbird Leys, but I know other towns that have got similar originally sort of big council estates on them, and they're great places to buy houses, because firstly the houses are bigger, they're solid as well,
well built,
they're really built to last, and you've got, like you say, you've got potential. At the end of every road, there's always a house on either end that you can extend, because they just leave this 20 feet of garden on the side of your house, which just lends itself to going garage on the side and room over the garage. And they're great buildings. They're just really good. And we've seen that cycle in Bracknell, which is a corporation town, over 20, 30 years, where I grew up in Wokingham, the leafy town next door, thinking, ugh, Bracknell. Ended up living in Bracknell for a period. And now now it's people move specifically here as a commuting hub. So you just have to look at, okay, well, this is where it is now. How does it look compared to what it did 10 years ago? How does it look compared to what it did 20 years ago? And then what money's going in the next 10 years? What's the trajectory? Yeah. Because if 10 years ago, if you're looking at it now and thinking, oh, it's okay, it's a bit scruffy, but 10 years ago you wouldn't have even visited that place, then, well, put another 10 years on it, and it's going to be a reasonably desirable place to live, with cafes and street scenes, and
this is the thing, because
gentrification's coming.
And that's exactly the thing, because I said to the people that bought it, who are our landlords, I said, believe me when I say this, the government are going to pump money into this place as a regeneration program.
Yeah.
There's going to be money pumped in. I know there will be. It's not advertised yet. It's not even public news yet, but just believe me, it will be, because these areas need the help. They're going to get it. And as soon as they brought it, 6 months later, boom, they come out. The council are pumping millions into the area, new houses. So their price of that 2-bed has just shot up.
Yeah.
So not only they're getting great rental, but the value's gone up.
You get that residual.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it sounds quite savage, but sometimes it's the last affordable place in a town. And if it's the last affordable place in the town, then it's always gonna ride on the coattails of everywhere else. Yeah. So it can't be a bad place to buy in a successful town.
Yeah, and I think council areas are usually looked down on. Mm-hmm. But actually, what I'm noticing, more professionals from the hospitals and things like that are actually just going. More students are living in them because they're getting better.
Yeah.
End of the day, it's. If someone could say, for example, a 3-bed house at Black Belize, for example, argument's sake, it's £1,500, right? Argument's sake, and a 3-bed in Headington, one of the most desirable locations, is £2,000. But actually, Black Belize's not too bad. It's got some great parks near you. It's got a lot of schools. Cost of living, you've got to save a bit of money. So more people are actually now thinking those areas aren't as bad as people say they are, and they're under a regeneration program. Yeah. Government's pumping money into them to make them more better, more desirable. So it's it's a win-win.
So is that your tip? Is that your Oxford tip?
Go for the council properties. No, I'm joking. No, because everyone's going to hate me. No, it's do your
everyone's got a favourite area or a pet area that they just really, for some reason in their heart, they just want to promote.
I love council properties. I do. Flats, houses. They're better built, they're better quality, they're frowned upon, but from an investment perspective, they're brilliant. They hardly go wrong, really. They don't. They're just so well kept and built. And also, for me, if I was an investor right now, I'll be looking in cities that are under regeneration programs, because you're going to snap up great properties for really cheap, and in a couple of years' time, they're going to shoot up in value, but also the rentals will get better and better and better. But my tip would be, whatever market you go into in Oxford, just do your homework. Do your homework. Know what you're actually buying. And there's no, even with like doer-uppers, there's quite a lot at the moment with doer-uppers. So there's a lot of properties that are not in the best condition, but you can snap them up for real good, value. Definitely worth it, 100%. If you've got the cash, definitely worth it. Convert them into HMO, but also do your homework on HMO side of things. You need to know if that street you're buying in.
That's got to be that's a huge
how many
thing.
How many of them properties are HMOs? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, any estate agent selling a 4-bedroom house is gonna sell you the dream of turn this into a HMO and make loads of money and blah blah blah. But get that research done on your own.
And that happened actually to one of our investors. So he bought a HMO. The estate agent said it was originally just a family house. I'll buy it. It's going to be HMO. 4 times been rejected.
Yeah.
Now it's just sat on property that he thought was going to be HMO, and really, you know, but.
Yeah,
The
unfortunately.
notebook's gone away and the phone's come out, Andy. Where
Do you know
are we
what?
at?
Last thing I want to touch upon, I just got the Property and Home Mover report for Q2 2024, issued by 20EA. So key headlines for Q2 2024. Sales agreed are up by 15.1%. Does that sound about right with your stats looking?
Yeah,
You love a stat looking.
Yeah,
didn't
we're absolutely flying, especially this month.
Lovely.
Like not what you would expect from an election month at all.
Nice. Exchanges are up by 10%, which is good. New instructions are up by 9%. Hybrid agents' market share for exchanges has risen to 5.7%. So that's something that's...
We're on the way.
We're on the way. And residential properties with an energy rating of A to C achieve closer to their sale asking price. So there you go. They're the key headlines from that report.
That shows a healthy market all round.
Exactly.
There is no one who can take those facts and twist them.
Oh, there will be on TikTok.
Oh, they'll try.
There's
I'll
always
be there in the comments.
Keyboard warriors. How can I wind this up? But yeah, they'll be out there. But look, they're the stats, aren't they? So yeah, if you've got any other stats that say differently, let us know. We'll
Pop them in the comments.
Yeah, we'll
Andy
quite
will
happily
reply.
look into them. But Sherko, thanks for joining us today. If you're listening, if you're thinking about investing in Oxford or want to know more about the Oxford area, then we'll make sure that Sherko's contact details are in the show notes. Get in contact with him. More than happy to help you. But Sherko, thank you.
Thank you
for coming in.
Thank you guys for having me.
No problem. And then we'll see you next time.